So you've got me again. Um, spending my Sunday lunchtime talking to you about fitness. Um, so I want to talk about this idea of setting an example, not just telling people what to do, i.e., your family or your kids or your clients. I guess it's this: you can't just do what I say, not what I do.
Is this inspired by the problems I've been causing on LinkedIn with my opinions?
Possibly a little bit.
Okay, setting an example. Define a little bit more for me, please.
Well, you just can't expect people to do something that you don't do yourself.
Okay, so that's a statement. What's the question?
Why do you think it's so important?
What, that a man sets an example for his family? Okay. Well, everyone learned at school, or if they had a good teacher. I don't know what they teach kids these days. They probably don't learn it anymore because they're teaching them all sorts of crazy stuff. But when I was at school, one of the things that was taught was that you should never ask someone to do something that you're not prepared to do themselves. In fact, I had a brilliant teacher called Mr. Hiscock. He was my year 7 head of year, and he was my form tutor for I think it was the last 2 years of my schooling, actually. I was very fortunate. And my school went through a uniform change. So when I was in year 7, year 8, it was shirt and tie, white shirt, blue and silver tie for boys with black or grey trousers, and ladies could wear a tie if they wanted to. None did. Tie was optional for ladies, but the same kind of thing. And then they went down the route that all schools appear to have gone down now, which is blazers and
Pleated
from a
sweats.
preferred supplier, and obviously no
Yeah.
kickbacks going on, and you know how it is, right? And something I found interesting about Mr. Hiscock was he was one of the only so he there was a minority of male teachers who wouldn't wear a jacket to work in the first 2 years I was there before the uniform switch over. And obviously that was fine because no one was asked to wear a jacket, so he didn't wear a jacket, and most of the male teachers did, but he just chose not to because he didn't like it. He also never enforced the top button rule because he didn't do his own top button up. So actually, he went to great lengths to teach us boys how to make it look like our top buttons were done up without actually doing them up. He was a bit of a legend, really. But then when the uniform change came in, I mentioned that minority of teachers that didn't wear jackets. Well, all of them continued to not wear jackets, apart from him. He started wearing a suit to school. And I asked him once in a corridor, I said, "Oh, sir, why?" Because obviously we all knew that he hated formal wear. And I said, "Oh, sir, why are you wearing a jacket now?" And she said to me, he said, "Phil," he says, "because you guys have to. So I can't not. I have to wear one. It's not fair otherwise." You know? And for some people, that's a really tough concept to grasp. They understand the idea of it, but when they're actually asked to practice it themselves, they won't do it. You know, they're happy to give out orders, but yeah, they don't want to actually hold themselves to the same standards they hold other people to. Whereas I'm very different to that. I will not ask anyone to do anything I'm not prepared to do myself. So I want you to be healthy, fit, strong, and independent.
Yeah.
And I want my kids to be healthy, fit, strong, and independent when they're ready to be independent, age appropriate independence. Well, that means I have to be healthy, strong, and independent, doesn't it? Because I can't sit here and expect you to be as thin, attractive, and pregnant as you are, whilst sitting on my backside complaining about how hard it is to find time to train and stuffing pizza into my mouth, can I?
No.
You wouldn't take me seriously, would you? And you wouldn't do it. Or maybe you would do it if I was physically abusive towards you. You might do it, but you would then resent me.
Do you remember the conversation when you decided to put road work back into your schedule?
What, last Christmas?
It
Yes,
was
yeah, it
last
was last
Christmas,
Christmas.
wasn't it?
So my book Shift, just for context to our lovely 6 listeners, that I used to do this thing when I was in ambulance service that was a boxer, a retired boxer, introduced me to it. He called it road work, which is as the word describes, going out for a walk, ideally a run, every day. You do your road work, and I wanted to include that in Shift because obviously it was an important thing that I did back then
Mm.
to help me get my cardio in when I was working all the silly hours and stuff. Obviously, my life's very different back then to how it was now. So yeah, although I had all the demands of the shift work and the stress of the job and so on, what I didn't have was a family and kids and other people. I lived alone, so my schedule was my own. So if I wanted to go out for a run for 40 minutes or walk around for 40 minutes, then there was no, it doesn't matter. As long as I turned up to work on time, nobody cared what I did or didn't do. Now it's very different. Our lives very different. So if I'm going to ask someone to do road work every day without fail, then I need to be doing that too, especially as the people that I'm writing the book for probably have a family and kids like I do.
Well, and you said to me,
Yeah.
Jess, I'm going to start doing an hour of road work every morning. I said, okay, when? He's like, well, I'll get up and go out, and long and short of it, you can get the kids up and dressed and give them breakfast, and I'll be back when you're done. And I went, not a chance in hell.
Yeah, well, it was 4 because it meant I had to get up at 4 a.m.
No. This
Oh,
was before that. That's when
okay.
I said, you said, oh, you just give the kids
Oh,
breakfast.
yes. I was going to leave you to do everything. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, no, in
You
that
were
case.
like, that's a good
Well,
idea.
yeah. And then later on in the conversation, so, okay, fine, I'll just get up at 4 and get back at 5 then.
Yeah, so that you're back and showered.
Yeah, I got up at just before
Yeah.
4 a.m. And then I went out and did it. And I did it for a solid couple of months. I did it
And then
for.
it was a couple of weeks before I then took pity
No,
on
it
you.
wasn't weeks, Jess.
Was it?
No, because I was right.
Months.
Constance Chronicles. There's proof. There is actually black and white proof that I was doing it because if you read the Constance Chronicles, you will see it's mentioned every day.
Yeah.
So that does mean I was doing it for.
Yes, but it wasn't 4 a.m. So
No, it was.
no, because do you remember to Butlins in January, and
Oh
it
yeah, but that
wasn't
was a
at
week where
4
it
a.m.
wasn't. Yeah, but okay. Well, the point is, I did it for long enough.
You did it for long enough, and I then, well, two things happened. One, I started to see the value in it, and two, I started to see how 4 a.m. was just a little bit too early, and it was fucking with your circadian rhythm and just absolutely screwing you over. So, I said to you, I think I should start doing this, and I think we should find a much more sustainable way to do it, both of us. So we found a routine that was, I think I got up an hour earlier or 40 minutes earlier, and then you made breakfast, and then I went, and then you went for your road work.
Yeah, but now, yeah, but the interim one's not. But now what we've settled on's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, we've settled on the same thing now. Like what we settled on now is that we get up, we eat, then you go out, then I go out.
yeah,
That's what we settled on now, and that works perfectly fine.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, I guess yeah, there's of course what's the point, isn't it? So like I wanted to go. You, you kind of obscured the point about doing setting an example here.
Well, no, the point was that I gave you pushback, didn't I? And was like, yeah, I don't think this is a good idea for you or anyone. And then you were like, no, Jess, this is a really good idea for me and everyone. And I was convinced because you you pushed through against my objection,
Yeah.
and then were like, and then just did it.
Well, yeah, and you saw the result.
Yeah,
And I just did it. And but the main reason I wanted to do it though is was nothing to do with you and the kids at all.
no,
It had everything to do with the fact that in terms of my fitness recommendations, I will not put something in a book or advise a client something that I'm not prepared to do myself.
yeah,
And for that book, because the circumstances were so different, the circumstances were so different from when I was single man living alone, where really the only barrier to you training is not being a lazy ass, to now with a family and a life that doesn't revolve around and cannot revolve around the pursuit of fitness.
yeah,
Like I had to be really careful with actually including that in the book because I could make that recommendation based on how I used to live,
yeah.
and then that might not be possible. So I needed to prove to everyone that to prove that it's possible to be done,
Mm,
and adjust and modify and actually make this work for someone who has more going on than just work and Xbox or whatever.
yeah.
That was the point. So that's kind of what I meant by leading by example in there. And but we know that you just follow me in what we do with training. This is the thing. Like what your experience of training is that you see me do it and then you just do it yourself because you're like, ah, this makes sense. I don't think I've ever like had to convince you to do anything training wise, have I?
No. I mean, other than to keep, like, convince me of the importance of keeping training, and then it very quickly sinks in.
When? I don't recall doing that.
I guess it's the smaller things, like after I had really bad back pain with Connie, and I just wanted to rest it off. And you just explain to me in kind of
Oh,
micro transactions, don't you, of Jess, actually with back pain you want to move and
Yeah,
get
provide.
strong and
I'll caveat that for the lawyers in the audience.
yeah,
Um, we're talking mechanical back pain with no, you know, significant injury to the spine or any kind of neural nerve no neurological
yeah,
symptoms or anything like that. That's yeah, all the NHS guidance and NICE guidance and stuff talks about, you know, mobilizing and stuff. And yeah, I didn't want you kind of sitting on the sofa with terrible posture. But Jess, do you know what? Actually, most of my recommendations aren't around like keeping on training. It's about things like how you sit, how you sit up
yeah.
and stuff. Like make you
Just
feel better.
in the example
Yes.
thing, it like two things I wanted to say. First is it's once you realize that this is the case, it's obvious how it bleeds into other areas of our life. Like our daughter Connie, she's more than happy to take her brother's bowl out after breakfast because she sees you take my plate out after breakfast.
Well, now she does all of the plates.
Well, yeah, she's not quite tall enough to put yours on the side without dropping the knife and fork.
Well, she picks up afterwards.
Yeah, this is true.
Um,
Um,
more to the point,
yeah,
conditioning this afternoon.
yeah,
She asked to do conditioning this afternoon. We'll go to the park and do our conditioning, and not only that, but she actually wants to be in charge.
yeah.
You know, I took her through some training. What, last week wasn't it? We
Hmm.
started doing that, and now she wants to lead. And she did it the other day. She took me through a full workout. She did four or five rounds of kangaroo or froggy jumps, she calls them, and then like running.
Yeah.
And we did that. She did a great job. And then she went, right, that's it, we're finished now. She said, I'm going to go play. So
Would you agree with the statement that people don't like this because it's the old look at the plank in your own eye before the sawdust in others?
no, people don't like it because they're just lazy, Jess. I'm sorry about this. People don't like it because none of what we are recommending is unachievable to the average person, right? It's very similar to how people like downplay, oh, I could never start a business because. And then they put all these massive objections up and stuff instead of actually kind of like looking at the problem and actually seeing that actually it's a series of very small steps that you need to make. And actually, if you really wanted to do it, it doesn't cost tons of money. You can bootstrap most business unless you want to do like, you know, they'll pick the most ridiculous thing or the most expensive thing, like a big e-commerce where you've got to have lots of stock and a really complicated business. But
Making pork
you know,
pies where you need a factory.
yeah, something like
Yeah,
that. They'll pick the biggest thing. The
yeah.
same with training. They'll pick the, you know, the most obscene thing. Oh, train for a marathon, or
Triple.
you know, they want to pay. This is straw man arguments.
Yeah.
They're not attacking what we're saying, because actually what I consistently say is do some. Can you sort your phone out, please? Do some sort of resistance training 4 times. Sorry, oh god, the phone. Do some sort of resistance training twice a week. So that could be lifting weights or body weight. My preference is to lift weights in a gym, particularly for beginners, for a bunch of reasons that I'll tell you if you give me money. If you don't give me money, just understand that I think gym's better. But if you can't go to the gym, fine, do body weight. That's fine.
Hmm.
That's 2 days a week. The other 2 days a week, you need to do some sort of hard cardio that gets you a bit hot and sweaty, but not like dying or anything, just a bit hot and sweaty. That could be as little as a mile run a couple of times a week just to get started. Oh, and then you need to walk every day without fail for, my recommendation does shift on this, doesn't it? Anywhere between half
Half
an
an
hour
hour
and
and
an
an
hour.
hour.
But the
Yeah,
point is that, you know, half an hour to an hour's walk every day. The more serious you are, the more likely you are to actually go up to an hour. That's
yeah,
the end of it. I'm sorry, I defy anyone to not be able to do that.
yeah.
And then they will turn around and, you know, I see it on LinkedIn. I'll get people saying stuff like, "Oh, these people who work 2 jobs and, you know, and they're still below the breadline." I'm like, yeah, but that's not
That's
you.
not the, and that's not the
That's
norm.
not you. That kind of, you know, that's a minority of people in places like the US.
Yeah,
You know, in the UK, it just isn't like that. And if it is like that, those people, you know, you pretending to be one of those people, if you're sitting on bloody LinkedIn, that's not you.
no,
You're not, you know. And then the whole eating healthily thing. Oh, eating healthy is so expensive and so time consuming. It's not.
no.
It's not expensive. You know, it's expensive if you want to do the whole like, if you want to do
Asparagus
it
and steak.
perfectly.
Yeah,
If you want to do it like perfectly, but again, it's that. they're not attacking what I'm saying. They're
Mm.
attacking this perfect notion of what it is. To
Yeah.
this very advanced kind of notion. You're gonna have grass fed steak and fresh asparagus and fresh avocado, all this other stuff.
Just because they turn their nose
Yeah,
up at school dinner veg,
yeah. Because but
which
they
is
were,
doable.
but it's just like, well, just eat some basic chicken thighs and some
Frozen
vegetables,
veg, yeah.
frozen vegetables. That's fine.
It works.
Yeah, but they don't want to do that. So the issue is that they're lazy, and then when they see what I'm doing and they see the results it gets, they just get very upset, very jealous. Guilt and jealousy are a potent combination, Jess.
Mm.
And they just don't want to step up and lead fundamentally. They just don't want to. It's too much responsibility for them.
I agree with what you say because I get like your crazy looks at work when I say I go for a walk for an hour every morning because I don't have a dog.
Yeah,
It's like if I walked the dog for an hour before work every morning, no one bat an eyelid.
yeah.
But I've got two young children, I'm pregnant, and I choose to invest in my health.
They're also not patient because they'll look at someone
Yeah.
like me now, right? So someone like me with the weights that I lift and the cardio activities I'm capable of, and they'll see that. But what they don't understand is it's taken me 15 years to get to this point.
Mm.
It's taken me 15 years. They're just not fucking patient. That's another problem. They're just fundamentally impatient. They cannot delay gratification, which is also another large reason why they're fat and often in debt as well,
Yeah.
because they cannot delay gratification. And when I turn around and I tell people that you know yeah, this is a process, and even if you work with me, like don't expect like crazy results in 3 months. Hopefully you'll be pleasantly surprised because of the way that you'll feel, but don't expect massive changes in the mirror or anything like that. And it's not helped because a lot of my competitors do the whole like 12-week transformation thing with the edited photos and the drugs and the other things and the dangerous
Mm.
diets. And you get someone on a 12-week transformation program with a before and after picture, and if you were to then take a picture of them 12 weeks after the after picture, highly unlikely that they're going to look anywhere near as good as they did in that picture, because to achieve a transformation like that, um, pretty much always requires drugs, particularly in men over the age of 30. And even if it doesn't require, even if drugs aren't taken, it's the diet. It's just not sustainable for the long
Mm.
term. So if you're actually serious about doing this for the long term and looking, pretty solid when you're in your 50s, then you need to start now with a really basic, boring approach and actually have the humility to you know, do some body weight squats because get off the leg extension machine, learn how to do a body weight squat. No, you're not going to be able to barbell squat 100 kilo, 150 kilo, but give it a year,
Mm.
2 years, 3 years, 5 years, well, you might. But again, it's patience.
Well, and I remember when I first started doing my road work, I was turning around just before Costa, and I could do that in like 20 minutes. And now when I get up round the corner past West Park in half an hour, like it feels great. Like for people who don't know, that's like the difference like half a mile.
Yeah.
But I can be out for an hour, and B I can get further and further like
Well, we
bits.
had that surprise run on Thursday morning for me, wasn't it? When we went
Yeah.
out together. Again, the kids were at their grandparents before anyone called social services. But we
Yeah.
went.
We got to the top of the road and I started running.
I
We
was
were like,
like,
oh,
but
bless you.
I did, but the thing is though, because of the cardiovascular fitness I've attained, which for me as a former fat person and a weightlifter who was allergic to
Mm.
cardio, as many guys who lift weights are, they just refuse to do running. They will say it's because they're really worried about like losing their muscle and stuff, but the truth is it's just because they're lazy fat fucks.
Mm.
I was a lazy fat fuck. So that's kind of I'm quite happy to come out on a limb. And whenever I see like guys in the gym that are lifting some serious weights and stuff, and they don't do any cardio, it's because they're lazy and they just don't
Mm.
want to do it, and it's unpleasant and boring. But I was able to just do that in my stride at your pace, and I taught the whole way, and you were quite impressed by that, weren't you?
Yeah.
Like, and that's a product of 8 months of really diligent cardio with me.
Yeah. And like I trained for a 10K earlier in the year, didn't I? And
Yeah,
like suddenly this like feeling of my legs running rather than trying to run
yeah,
from like my head and
yeah.
lungs. It just feels amazing.
That took weeks of you just doing it a bit shit,
Months.
months of you doing it like a shit job, but doing it anyway.
Yeah.
A shit, just be clear, a shit but safe job.
Yeah.
Like you were running safely with good form, but you
Yeah.
just weren't very good at it,
No.
and you just got good at it. And as I say, people just their egos are too big for them to take the hit and do the basics and do very little. I mentioned earlier about running just a mile. A
Mm.
lot of people are, there's no point if it's just a mile. They'll always say, oh, I've entered a 10K or a 15K or a half marathon or a marathon. It's like, why?
Well, and I did my 10K and then realized actually that was really hard and just way too far.
Well,
And actually, all of the gains I've seen, or like the
doing 2.5 mile runs, about
yeah,
2 to 2.5 miles is your limit, but you do it quickly.
yeah,
But pushing the
well,
speed, yeah, doing it well
yeah,
and quickly,
yeah,
rather than kind of slobbing it for 10K. Yeah, I've got a mate who was in the army. He's one of these super fit guys who he'll run like 2 half marathons in a day, just and then go for a cycle ride. And he's just one of these people, right? You know, that's amazing, and he's got the results for it. And he's worked really hard for all of that, but you don't need to do that to get pretty impressive results as someone who can't do, so I just, my little 5Ks and stuff, but the thing key is I do it well.
yeah,
And so yeah, anyway, bread's going to tick off in a minute, isn't it? And it's been 20
yeah.
minutes, so that'll do.
Cool.